Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 9th round of Vaultathon live show. We are going to be talking about how our readathon went, and we're going to be talking about the Emperor's New Groove, and we will be talking about Fruit of the Drunken Tree. So, yeah. Does everyone... We are waiting on one host to get home from church, but does everyone else want to kind of introduce themselves, say hello?
Church.
Thor, you're first, so I think that...
Okay. I was like, he, honey, Wednesday. My name is Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter, also known as Thor. I read different types of literature, romance, LGBTQIAP, and indigenous literature. And I also like to bullet journal.
Yes, and you have a pin collection that makes me very... Whoops, that's the wrong link. Very jealous. I almost invited everyone to join our StreamYard browser. That wouldn't work. Yes. All right, there we go. All right, we can go. Let's do the this way.
No, you have to go clockwise. I'm autistic. Please go clockwise.
Okay, so for me, it is clockwise, which means Kara is next.
Why are you motioning counterclockwise?
Okay, so we're gonna go Michelle, Kara.
Yes, that's clockwise.
Okay. From my view, it's this way clockwise.
Because she's facing the camera. She's facing a camera, so it flips it. That's why it's like we're talking about the same direction, but it looks different.
Okay, so for me, it's counterclockwise if I say we're gonna go this way. I'm sorry, I did not mean to do this.
Just go.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Kara. My channel is Wild Book Garden. I read pretty much everything. Fantasy, historical fiction, contemporary, nonfiction, little sprinkling of romance and sci-fi. And I also read across all age ranges. That's something I'm very passionate about. Middle grade, young adult, which are not genres. Pet peeve of mine. But yeah, I think that's a really important thing, and it's something I really enjoy doing, and I'm excited to be a guest on Vaultathon again. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it annoys me when people talk so I understand the usefulness of categorizing YA and middle grade as genres in some circumstances. However, they're not genres.
Yeah. I not to get it off in the weeds, but I think a content warning system would be so much more useful. Like for movies, that makes way more sense to me, but I could talk about that all day. So Cal, go ahead.
Well, I also, we could go into the fact that there's no more young YA anymore.
It's it's just one of those things, when you're reading a story about somebody who's not exactly like you in whatever capacity, I feel like you're a guest. If you can enjoy it and have a good time, that's great. If you don't, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not for you, and that's okay.
I think that's why I always when I don't say I don't like a middle grade or a YA, I say it's it's too young for me, not it's immature. It's too young for me to enjoy it because I don't.
Yeah, but you'd still be able to sit back and say,
I don't
the age range that this is meant for, this is good.
Right, or objectively, it's a nice story or something But to me,
I like my kids.
Yeah, I think there's that's.
Yeah, and I think there's some stories that lend themselves more to reading by multiple ages than others. There are some kids books where you can tell this is written for kids and for kids only, and that's great. And it's if I don't get on with it,
kids books We Are Water Protectors by
so good,
Michaela Good and Carolyn something I forgot. It's
Carol
Lindstrom. Carol Lindstrom or something like that.
Yeah.
But that has amazing art. I love when I see kid-lit books like that where the art is just ridiculously good.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more kid books that appeal to older readers than publishing acknowledges. And I understand they're really trying to target their marketing, and I get that, but it kind of ends up cutting people off from one of the whole points of reading.
Also see kids books where it's very clear that the author is aware parents are going to be reading these to the kids as well.
Yeah. My most anticipated read is a first graders chapter book.
Yeah.
Well, think of even in Vaultathon history, the difference between I Can Make This Promise by Christine Day and Saving Lucas Biggs by whoever the fuck wrote that.
That wasn't for any age range. It's, oh my God, I don't remember.
But like, I Can Make This Promise was just a good book.
Good.
Like, it's just a fucking good book. Like, no matter who you are, what age you are.
Yeah.
Saving Lucas Biggs was like really quite childish and missed the point.
I'm gonna be honest, I would not give it to my middle grade kid.
No, I'd be like, oh, this is the chance of the wrong idea to a small kid.
Better narrative. Here's a better book. Like the Dear America books would have done better for kids having to learn about that stuff in that book.
Yeah.
Like, here's one where they actually do, like, have a lesson against corporations.
Yeah.
But I would still say that I found, like, Saving Lucas Biggs childish. And I was like, this is, like, really, like, flawed logic and simplistic logic where I can
didn't make sense.
It was written for a younger audience, but it wasn't childish at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, Ghost Squad. I read Ghost Squad very soon after I read Saving Lucas Biggs. And Clarabelle does a fantastic job of coming up with a reasoning that is why the girls have to be the ones to solve the problem, even though they do actually end up involving the adults in trying to fix what's been made wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's logical. It makes sense that the kid is on their own. We are on a tangent, but yeah, like you have, if you're going to do that, you have to find a plausible reason versus, oh yeah, you just traveled from the future, so you should be the one to fix this. When it's like, why would we not send the freaking adults? Anyways, Cal, would you like to introduce yourself? As you put...
Hi, I'm Cal. I'm eating cottage cheese and bananas.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that.
My channel is Retrieving Books, and I talk about books and my golden retrievers.
Okay. I'm still. You also apparently have fantastic comedic timing.
Thank you.
So, okay. I am stalling, by the way. I'm not sure when Bree's going to get here, but Bree will get here when Bree gets here. Obviously, y'all know me. You're on my channel. And hopefully we'll get some people. If you are in the chat for Vaultathon, go ahead and let us know how you did this time around. And I'm going to go ahead and I don't like that. Let's do something different.
Oh,
I like that better. So we'll revisit this when Bree joins us. But how did we do this time around for Vaultathon?
I did very badly.
Cal, I sit at the front of the class and answer every question right away.
You know that was me.
It was me too.
That's why we all end up on BookTube, because we're all those kids.
Like, we still need to do book reviews.
Yeah. I shared the distinction with my high school best friend of being the only students in my humanities class that the teacher would turn to us and go, "You guys don't answer." Like she literally in class said, "Margaret, Hannah, you're on mute."
Anyone but Christine. All right.
That taught me to pause and see if anyone else could answer, because I knew the answer, so I would just wait to see if anyone else answered after that.
I don't care.
If they didn't, I'd be like, I do know.
I literally don't care how other people do in the class. I'm there for my grades. But so I, as per usual, read only the group book and only did the prompts that the group book applied to.
See, I don't think I did any of that. I had every intention of reading the whole book, and I got a little hangover after reading Icebreaker, and I only got like 4 pages in.
It's also not like if you're in any kind of sensitive mood at all for any reason, it is not a feel good book. Like it is.
No, it is not. This one was a heavy one.
I didn't read it because my grandpa died on Tuesday.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this may not have been the time for you.
Interesting. She's a singer. Huh. I'm actually looking in her bio before I tell you. Because I haven't been able to confirm it, but I suspect, so like this might be one you pick up again for Indigathon, because I suspect the author, her mother was Indigenous.
Okay.
if it is as autobiographical as it seems to be. But I will get back to you on that.
The two main plot points are autobiographical, like the two main things. Yeah.
So, anyways, no, that's understandable. Like sometimes life happens, but you know, I still think it's a book worth reading, even if you weren't able to get through it in like a week. If it's something that you need to pick up, read a little bit of, put down for a while, pick up, read, like
it's at least worth learning about.
Yeah.
The contents, I guess, but I think that the book was also extremely traumatic, and I can understand people being like,
nope, not for me.
Yeah.
We'll get to my thoughts on like how the book is meant to function when we get to talking about the book. But Kara, how did you do?
I did pretty well. I did read the group book, so I know I at least hit those prompts, and I did read several other books that would count for prompts. I didn't do as well on the action prompts, so I'm still gonna like make those a priority in the next couple of days. Yeah, I also I know we're not into the book yet, but since we kind of started talking about it, like I also it was hard to read, especially in the like headspace that I'm in, but I think the audio actually really helped that, because it for some reason it was a little easier following along and having someone else tell me about these things than like to kind of internalize it by reading it. And I also really liked the narrator, so I was enjoying her acting enough that was like a distancing thing almost. I was like, wow, she's really good at these character voices. That's making me have a better time. But yeah, it is one that I got a lot out of. So, and I never would have picked this book up if it wasn't for for Vaultathon. Like when you told me what the book was, I looked it up and I'm like, oh. So it's good, I guess, that I did read it.
It's not one I think that a lot of people are going to reach for, simply because it is not just primarily subject matter, but also because it is literary fiction. And I think that is very much, literary fiction is harder to find what you like.
Well, and it's also just structure choices. Like I could tell from the synopsis there were a few major plot things that I don't like, so that was part of it as well. But there is a very loud corner of BookTube for literary fiction, so and it's gotten very good reviews overall, it looks like.
The writing seemed good.
Yeah,
it's very good writing.
She's talented. I do actually particularly like litfic from the global south. Like I read a lot of African litfic. So I enjoyed that, and I really like litfic that explores historical topics. I've always enjoyed that. And so I liked that part of this. I didn't like maybe how time
spent in a child's head.
Felt like experiencing it in real time. You know, like reading a book, it's almost like, oh, and then this really terrible thing happened. It was like, no, we're going to sit with this really terrible thing for 3 hours of your life. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, she did do a very good job of that. Yeah, so I am almost done with Nocturna, which will be fulfilling 2 of the prompts. And then I'm also almost done with this. I'm like 10 pages away from the end. But my dad is currently building me a bed, and he wanted to talk about that. And since he is doing that for me, I was like, I will
say no.
I will do that. I have time. So
I just want to preface this by saying that when we started Vaultathon, Margaret said, it's going to be a chill readathon. I'll make it so that you never have to read more than the group book. And so no matter what you do, I will never read more than the group book.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. As long as you read the group book, that's what counts.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's meant to be customizable so that, like, if you read the group book, you can do it. If you want to be like me and try and do a book for every prompt, because a lot of the time I'll use this to get to books that I've been wanting to get to for a while. Let me tell you, finding the group book for this movie was difficult because I knew from the get-go that I wanted someone who was from South America at least.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, this was my first kind of foray into those authors. But I was very happy with like the books that I still plan on reading the Isabella Allende book that I'm going to be reading, or that I was supposed to read this month or this week. And then I still plan on picking up the book on Colombia that I wanted to pick up. Just it won't be happening this week. It'll just be something that I do as I go throughout the rest of the year. So, but what other books did you read that you think would work for prompts, Kara?
So let me go and look at Goodreads here. So I used Baraka Beats by Maliha Siddiqui for loud colors on the cover, which I really enjoyed that one. And then I was able to finish Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie for characters working together, like working towards the same goal, because it was Poirot and kind of a friend of his investigating something. And I did end up reading Anthology of Amazing Women by Sandra Lawrence, which I just finished last night. And that was for like from different backgrounds, because the whole point is it talks about a lot of women from different backgrounds. And I would really recommend that. Like, I think it's one of the better, like, this is a type of nonfiction I like anyway. And I think it's a really good example of that. I wish they had maybe a few more queer women, but overall they did, I think, a pretty good job of like a diverse selection of women, and a really good balance of like some important women who we know about and some really like not as well known. Like, I was also thrilled to see a couple that like I really like learning about, but I don't feel like get included in these books a lot, like Leah Salonga, who I love.
Oh my god!
Corinne Chada. So like, yeah. So it was a good one. And
Leah
the art was really
Salonga,
cool. I love
Disney
her.
queen, but also like one of the most misses as Fantine that I've ever seen. And
That's an opinion. Okay.
She smiled the whole
It was a concert though too.
Yeah,
like they could not decide if they wanted a concert or a musical.
But I was like, I found her performance of Fantine really lacking in acting. But you're right. Yeah, where some of them were acting their little hearts out, and some of them were just like, we're just gonna sing the songs.
Yeah. And I love her in Allegiance too.
That's a problem of the director of that show. Because the director should have stated to them, okay, listen, this is either going to be acting, or this is just a concert to celebrate.
Hey, Leah, maybe in the song about being a sad dying prostitute, don't grin the whole time. Maybe.
I can understand to some extent, because being able to sing that is many Sopranos dreams. So anyways, real quick, we have our I don't know. Is it fifth or fourth co-host?
Well, are you a co-host, Margaret?
I am. I don't know. We have our fifth host joining us. Bree, would you like to introduce yourself real quick, and then let us know how you did for Vaultathon this time around?
Sure. Okay.
And
my name is Bree.
Like I
said. My name is Bree. Sorry I'm late to the party. Had some things going on.
You're good.
It's all fine. But I read, where is it? Here. I read this, and I read some of this, Our Violent Ends, and I read some of this, Vampires Never Grow Old, which the plan was to finish all three. That was not what happened, but it's okay. I made progress in all three and finished one. So that is still good, I feel like. All things considered.
Yeah. I will have read the group book. I will have read an audiobook that matches prompts. I probably did something at some point that was an hour of self-care.
I know. I'm like, I probably did, but I wasn't as intentional about it as I'd like to be.
I played video games last night, so there you go. That
counts. So okay. I think that is anything else about how we did while we were doing this thing? Nope. Okay, then let's move on. Let's talk about the Emperor's New Groove. So obviously, I think, is it safe to say that all of us have seen this? Have all of us seen this movie before now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Multiple times.
I was going to say, I think I'm talking with like all millennials or late Gen Z, right?
I am Gen Z. Okay?
I know.
Right.
Late Gen Z.
No, I am the first year of Gen Z.
Early Gen Z. That's what I meant. I meant the
1997
elder.
is the best year in living memory.
You're the elder part of Gen Z is what I meant. So I think most of us were around for the 2000s when this iconic movie came out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was very small.
Yeah. How many of y'all saw it in theaters?
I don't remember.
What year did
We
we?
didn't actually
2000.
go to the theater a lot as a kid.
I don't
Oh.
remember.
We went for every Disney movie for a real long time. I think I just showed my age. I did see it in theaters.
What year did Dinosaur come out in theaters? Dinosaur also came out.
99.
I went to that in theaters,
My
I'm
first
just
movie in
bad at
theater was
remembering.
Dinosaur,
but I don't remember it.
and it also came out in December 2000. Did it? Okay, so I'm guessing that no, I did not see it in theaters because I know that my parents took me to one singular movie that year, and they were like, "Look, the kid can sit through a film."
See, my parents didn't take me to movies as a kid. The only one that took me to movies was my dad, and that was only for She Who Must Not Be Named's movies.
Ah.
Yeah, there were some movies that we
Oh.
always saw in theaters, but for the most part, I think most of our early Disney ones we watched at home because that was just like I think going to the movies was never as like big of an event for us. Like we like doing it once in a while, but if we're like, oh, we could either drive 40 minutes to a theater or we could sit at home. We want to sit at home. Like
we have several theaters that we had to choose from just because we're in a pretty metropolitan area. But like the Disney movie every year was the one that we went to see.
I was 3.5.
Or Star Wars. My God, you're a baby.
We rented a lot of movies more than
was
we went to
13.
theaters.
mm-hmm.
'Cause,
Yeah.
we had this like good old movie house where you could go and rent, and very poorly organized, by the way. Many scary movie covers or whatever were like out facing where the kids roam around. There wasn't like a separate room for like all
Your
of the-
house?
No, in the movie
That's what I do.
rental
I own a
place.
rental place.
Oh, see, we weren't allowed to go further from my mom than like the kids section, so that wasn't a
Like,
problem.
the kids section was on the back wall, so you had to walk through all of the scary movies, the pornos, all of that.
That's what I do. I put the porn right over.
Everything is just out facing whatever.
You want to rent a movie from this here blockbuster? You're gonna have to do the time.
Wow, because like the new releases were always on the back wall at Blockbuster near me, and then like you'd have like so you'd have the black wall, and then you'd have shelves that were like this, and like you'd have action, drama, all of that stuff. They had the kids movies, or they had the family movies. So I mean, we probably saw some of the scary movie covers, but
So
I think I saw it because
was traumatized by them as a kid. The cover, just the cover, or the what do you call the case?
Yeah,
of the VHS tapes.
I would make fun of you for being traumatized by VHS tape covers, but I have several Goosebumps covers that I am still haunted by to this day.
Right? Like they don't make them. They don't make them like they used to.
I wasn't allowed to read them, but I did read the backs and see the covers. Like the puppet one freaked me the heck out. Cal is judging me. There's also a ride on SeaWorld that I only went on once.
I don't understand fear like this. I'm just I don't know if I felt it. I don't know if I feel empathy properly. Like I just don't know.
For me, it wasn't seeing the cover originally that was terrifying. It was going and laying down at night and it replaying in my head, that creepy cover. And then my imagination as a, creative young child would then create these very elaborate stories to go with said cover that usually involves
you dying.
A lot of sleep lost.
See, if we had been friends and we'd been having a sleepover and you had made the fatal error of confessing that to me, I would have been like, it's tacky. Like I would not have been nice.
That's funny.
Oh.
Yeah, I have always had a heightened sense of reality and what is like real and what's not, and like most of the time, real shit is what scares me.
That's what I like. I'm scared of the dentist.
I'm not scared of the dentist, but I'm scared of the idea that I might ever have to get an MRI.
Yeah,
those aren't bad.
Don't do it.
They're loud though.
You say that, but I think of that little tiny tube, which is very difficult to get out of, and would rather die.
It's more so the noise that is scary. But you can put headphones on and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was so
honestly, it wasn't even the noise.
They had to get me a blanket because I was like,
I did it twice.
That will be me probably.
For me, it wasn't the noise; it was the fact that I had to stay still. I was terrified of being still.
Oh, I can do that. I'll just be
mean, it doesn't help that I have Tourette's, but still.
Oh, fair. I'll be like, imagine you are a stone floating to the bottom or sinking to the bottom of a lake. But then I get cold and I'm like,
I can't tell you how many times they came on the little ear thingy that they give you and were like, be still. And I'm like, I'm trying.
I just tried to follow.
This is as still as I get.
That's funny. So we've kind of gotten into it. So I think you started to talk about this, Thor, but does anyone remember like their first experience with this movie or when they saw it? No.
Watching it with I think I watched it with my little with my little brothers. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It's just always been one of our favorites, so I don't really remember the first time we saw it. So
it's always been there.
I think there was a video game, wasn't there?
Yes, there was, and then there was also Kronk's New School, if anyone remembers that.
Yes, Emperor's New School and
Emperor's New School is the one that we saw part of.
Emperor's New School. Okay.
There's also a game on the DVD version of this that there was like 2 or 3 games that you could play. We spent many an hour after finishing watching the movie on a Saturday playing the game.
I think I used to do that kind of stuff too.
I missed them. Why have we never found this?
There's one where you're in Kronk's head. And it's like it's literally like all these gears, like it's like a machine in his head, and you're like doing all these things. It's phenomenal.
Kronk, like Margaret messaged me, she was like, Kronk is Macus. So I think that like the best way to describe Kronk is that he is a male golden retriever. Like that is
he was like himbo before they were cool.
Right? Like that's the OG.
He's kind of the OG himbo.
He's a himbo, but he also thinks really quickly on his feet.
Yeah, and he's like super smart about like languages and like multitasking, like when he's cooking and
he's really kind.
Brilliant.
He's such a sweet boy.
I love him.
He is.
Great.
Maybe he's autistic, okay? Where he's really smart, but he's not picking up all the social cues.
He would make an amazing boyfriend.
I would marry Kronk in 30 seconds.
I mean, we do have to keep in mind that is what is implied between him and Yzma to some extent.
Are we Yzma and Kronk?
I mean, I wouldn't think that. I mean, I don't really think that they're married. I think that
I think she is a powerful woman, and he is the eye candy of the decade.
He was her male servant that just needed a job. I mean,
Cusco literally
on his back.
Cusco literally says he's like her whatever of the decade.
Toy.
Yeah. That she gets a new one every decade or so. It's like.
I don't
think about this one's in his 20s this time. You just keep getting younger. Like she's fucking Kronk.
Late 20s. So
I don't remember my first time watching this, but we did watch it a lot.
Yeah.
And particularly in the last I would say 8 years. Maybe 4 to 6 years or so. When my sister was when she was in college, she and her friends started playing this game called Disney Quote Go. And you would say Disney Quote Go, Cal. And then Cal would have to say a Disney quote. That was not a song lyric.
Okay. I'm with you to the end of the line, pal.
And then the next person would have to say, Cal would then say Disney Quote Go, Margaret. And then Margaret would have to say a quote, but it could not be from the same movie.
Do you trust me?
So we were playing this game, and we were on a car ride, and we were playing this game, and my dad, what does he choose to quote? He goes, "Is that my voice?" Like he a little voice like that, and that's the line. Quoting this movie really resonates with me. I think like that's like my nostalgia of it is like all the quotes that are in there that are just so usable in everyday life.
There are
I think if we like counted them up, I think this is one of the most memes per minute Disney movie.
Yes.
Like it's gotta be
Sure.
every other line or like frame of the movie.
Disney Renaissance could never.
Even the subtext, like turning Eartha Kitt's character into a cat. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
I forget that that's Eartha Kitt every
Right?
time.
Like they turned Catwoman into a cat.
So good.
I am pretty sure that has happened in the comics.
That and Chicha is like the first like pregnant woman like in a Disney movie.
That we really see.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, that seems so sad that it took to 2000.
That doesn't die. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true.
That's funny. Also, I gotta
She's
go
a
watch
badass.
something.
She's
mother.
great. I
One
like
of,
how she's like, do you need me to torture this woman with my kids?
Yeah, like one of the best scenes. One of the best scenes in the movie is
The kids just teleporting down the hill faster than gravity is pulling her. Like they are teleporting to get ahead of her.
Like they have clearly done this before. Like it's such a rehearsed.
she says,
thing.
"You know
I'm
what to do."
like,
I love that this is
Nika,
their
what's
plan, too.
happening?
Yeah,
Like
I
of
think
all
when
the plans they could have had. And the fact that they knew that there would be a freaking birthday party down there too. Like how many kids does that other woman have so that she knows that there's a birthday party always happening?
I think one of my favorite things
What?
about the movie at watching as an adult that I didn't notice as a kid was the pure plot magic that was like tongue in cheek. Like they're like, we're not gonna actually try to find a reasonable explanation out of this. We're just gonna open a trapdoor and hit him in the face. Like it's just like what are the chances it'd be right here? Like, oh my god.
when Yzma and Kronk look down and they see the map under them,
So good.
This movie is a master class in how to use breaking the fourth wall for humor. Like it's
Yes.
just
Awareness, yeah.
they're
brilliant.
so good. Yeah,
Brilliant. And I love that they really play up on that and they go with
Yeah.
it. And the fact that like there was clearly places like the plot magic where they just are like, there's no reasonable reason for us to go into why this happened. Just know that they got from here to here.
yeah.
Yep.
Like how did you do it for us? And he's like, I don't know. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense. And then they just move on.
pulled a map out of nowhere, like out of the sky.
Yeah, out of the sky. Because
Yeah.
there's
It's the
definitely a
most-
pull down map right there.
Yeah, it's the most aware that it is a movie with magic where people get turned into llamas. Like
Yeah.
they're like, this woman had like, we can do anything we want.
But they
So
don't
imagine-
overdo it, which I like. It's like they do it often enough that it's funny, but they don't like beat it into the
Overdo it.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, imagine
wonder-
being in this in the conversation where they were like, "Oh, we should do the Emperor's New Clothes." Oh, but we can't have a naked guy. What are we gonna do? We'll turn him into something. We'll turn him into something that he feels so ugly he can't be around.
Llama, he's supposed to be black.
Yeah.
Weird.
The
That
train
went
of thought that led them to this point, I just really enjoy. Like,
Because
mean,
Emperor's New Clothes
I would love
is
to have
not
heard that conversation.
set in Peru, right? Like Emperor's New Clothes is not set in Peru, so like they went can't be naked, llama. Llamas are from Peru, Incan Empire. Like okay,
Like, just so much happened to make this story the way it is, and I just really appreciate that. Like, even like Incan Empire, but the style of humor and the style of music that they chose, like
Mhm.
it's just such an interesting collaboration of things, and it's like, who was working on this project and came up with that idea or this idea? Like,
Love
there's
it.
just
I
so
kept-
many elements to it.
I kept wondering how much research they had to done and how much was like actual like good representation of what the Incans would have worn, all of that kind of stuff. Because obviously they're like Disney's like, we're gonna put anachronisms in here. We're gonna have a pin in here. So I think it would be interesting to find someone who like is from Peru and is able to analyze it. Because I was thinking that like all through the movie, I was like,
With like the gigantic bug and whatnot. Honestly,
gigantic
that's my favorite was just Kronk like immediately becoming a chef. Just-
that was so funny where he just like
Kronk
started spilling like
You know,
fulfilling
I
his
love
culinary
that.
dreams.
Appreciated genius.
I appreciate that in Kronk's New Groove they like give a backstory to it too. They like, we made this random thing happen. Let's make a whole story about it. And they just went off of it.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it was set up at the beginning when he's doing all of that with the spinach puffs. So we know he knows how to cook and use recipes.
Right.
And then so that's just a natural progression. It just was that's it's a classic moment.
This entire movie, like Yzma and Cusco are pretty much like irrelevant. It is just Kronk and Pacha, two cinnamon rolls, being like, I can't let someone die. Like really nothing would happen if they weren't just such pure babies. Like guilty conscience, guilty conscience. Like when in all accounts, they should have just been like, who cares? Like,
It's Kronk, Pacha, and then Chicha coming in to steal the show with like 3 scenes.
Yeah.
Like
she's not a cinnamon roll. You know, she's spicy.
No, she's the one that married the cinnamon roll because someone needed to defend the poor dude.
She's a jalapeno popper. She's still great, but she's spicy, you know? But like no, they're cinnamon rolls.
Like I wonder if that's okay, so pause it, fan fiction time. Like I imagine that Pacha is the one that, like, because he was the chief of the village, is the face, doing all the diplomatic stuff. And then when someone comes through that's a problem, like, Chicha just, like, gets rid of them in some way, similar to how she got rid of Yzma.
Let's be completely honest. Chicha is in the story because if you didn't have Chicha in the story, it's gay as shit.
Yeah.
It's so gay if she's not there.
That's funny.
Well, I mean, he was... Cusco was like rejecting girls at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
it's true.
Ugly. Like, oh my god! Like, what if I dressed up in girls' clothes and we went on a date? Okay.
I mean, they did act that out at the diner.
They went like too much. Like they were like, I was like, this is not just for convenience. Like you're having a good time.
Oh, that's
I'm just saying that entire movie and the scene where Bucky and Sam are rolling on top of each other in the field of flowers has the exact same energy.
That explains why this was doing things differently than I was expecting. Oh my god. Yeah, Disney. King and queens of the what's the word? Oh my god. Unintentionally gay shit.
Queer baiting.
Yeah. Queer baiting.
So
there was that was intentional though. That wasn't unintentional because there was like drag and jokes about them kissing each other and like jokes about looks. Like it wasn't unintentional at all.
And having to touch each other.
Yeah.
In general.
I mean, I kind of resonated with the whole no touchy thing because number one, he is the emperor. If someone is touching him that he doesn't want touching him, that's a problem. Number two, I don't like people I don't know touching me.
No, I'm just saying, like being like haha no homo was the joke for the most of the movie. Like that was the joke.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was a good joke. It was done well. Like I'm not complaining, but
that's funny. What else did we want to? Oh, I think you wanted to say some things about Yzma.
I love her.
She is iconic, and I don't know why the joke with the knife was like the best thing to me and my brother as kids.
It's funny. Like they think she's gonna show them her thigh, and when she actually wants to murder them, they're like, "Oh, thank God."
They think she's gonna flash them.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Vagina, and then it's just the knife.
Yeah, I just multiple people describe it. Oh, old woman, scary beyond all reason.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Also, there's something iconic about her getting Kronk, and she's in like her little tent, and he's like carrying her on his shoulder, like just running through the jungle. Like Yzma is living somebody's dream, and
when she's like, Kronk, pull over. I'm getting tired.
Funny if she was not such an awful person, and if she had not been like, oh, you're a peasant at the beginning of the movie, too bad for you. Like, she's the one that people will be rooting for.
It's just that one line.
Except she does kill a bunch of people at the end. Like, those random guards that she doesn't care about. Like,
Okay, well, she did let him go home because he had unexpectedly turned into a cow, okay? She's a
Right.
really reasonable boss. She asked the others if they consented to staying.
Well, and there's something that could be said for, like, just kind of like how, like, she's feminine, but she also looks kind of androgynous because she's not wearing, like, you can't see her hair. You just
She's very
see...
chesty. She has a very flat chest and, like, broad shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, her hair
is wearing
implied as a wig.
A head wrapping.
Yeah. So.
Not Disney queer coding its villains again. In a movie that we've already established, the joke is no homo.
What
a shocker.
Wow.
Listen, one of my friends, their entire thesis for their either their undergrad or their grad degree, I can't remember if they have a grad degree, but their entire thesis is the queer coding of the Joker. So, like, it is a interest. Yes, well established. Or are you okay? Yeah,
everything is gay.
I am pretty sure Stitch sent it to me at some point, and I just haven't read it yet.
I'll write a thesis about why Batman and Harvey Dent are gay in that one
obvious.
book. Yeah,
that's like you need
like gay as hell.
You only need like a page for that.
Yeah, just him being like, he was so young and attractive. What a beautiful young man lost. I was like, oh, Bruce.
Well, he also says that about some of the Robins, though. So, and then that gets weird if we're looking at it from that.
What a beautiful young man. I would have liked to lick his butt, but now he's dead.
Wow.
That's like a third.
Why? Oh my god. Okay. Anyways, do we have anything else we want to say about The Emperor's New Groove other than it is a good fun time?
The song at the end, the
what?
end credit song was a terrible choice.
Yeah, I agree.
What is going on? I don't understand what that was such a tone shift.
Like, why a ballad?
Like, I can understand that.
It's always
if
a ballad at the end of a Disney movie, but like,
if it had been a montage included, but they didn't do any montage shots or anything like that, so it didn't work.
I would have done something more upbeat that faded into that song. Like I got
the way that they ended the movie was good. Like that, like reprise of the song, and they're doing their.
They could have just had the credits running over that. Yeah.
Like why'd you do it?
Done that too. They could have had that be the intro of the credit scene, and then transitioned into the other song when you get to a black screen.
Yeah.
Like they could have done the initial credits, or like the main.
Like the flashier part.
Yeah. I didn't get to the end because Calvin woke up and then he started playing Elden Ring.
Yeah, but it's just like so you go from the reprise of the Cusco song to da 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 da.
To wrap up, the movie does end with Pacha, Cusco, and Chicha in a triad at the cottage.
I'm sure that would be ideal.
I mean,
I'm sure that's exactly what the ending implies.
Okay, all I'm saying is in the Emperor's New School, he does live with them.
I'm just saying, and there's a family photo, and they're all together. I'm just saying.
See, that's funny. Yeah. Cusco gives me more like fun uncle vibes, but you could still do that and be in a triad.
They went on a date. I don't know. Next thing you know, they're living together.
All right.
Sounds like lesbians, if you ask me.
Did you just say sounds like lesbians?
So basically, Callus, what you're saying, how we're going to make every single movie that comes out after this from Vaultathon, how it's going to be linked to queer stories.
Absolutely. I mean, the next one is definitely linked to queer stories because like the mythology has queer stories. I'll tell you guys at the end of the
mythology. Does that mean what I think it means?
Does that mean that we're finally getting what we've been asking for several months?
Possibly, but let's talk about before we celebrate.
Fuck those suckers in a
vault. It's vault.
I know.
All right, before we celebrate, let's talk about Fruit of the Drunken Tree. Now, I know not all of us finished it, namely me being one of them. But 3 of us finished it. So let's start for those that finished. What was your rating? 3? That's what I think I'm going to end up giving it.
Yeah, like I haven't even rated it yet, which is very rare for me because I just feel like very conflicted. Like we talked a little bit about this before the live show started, but like I can tell it's a really, really important story for the author to write. It was clearly very cathartic for her, and I learned a lot, and it was very valuable. But I had some issues with the storytelling choices, and I also just had a really terrible time reading it. So it feels weird to give it higher, but I also feel bad giving it a low rating or even like a middle of the road rating because I knew this would not be a book for me. Like the structure of the story, and like I did not get on with the writing. I know a lot of people do, but I did not really enjoy it. I think it was kind of overdone, and there was just like, I don't know, like I feel weird critiquing some of it because it's like this is very autobiographical, it seems. So I don't know. I'm weird about it.
The parts that for sure are autobiographical is she did have a maid that was kind of roped into kidnapping the two of them and then decided not to. And then her dad was kidnapped, and funnily enough her dad got out within a day because her dad was a friend of the guerrilla groups, like they were childhood friends.
Yeah, I read that part too. Yeah. I also thought it was weird that like the synopsis, I remember making a big deal out of it being a story about a friendship between these two very different girls. I was like halfway into the book and I'm like, when are they going to be friends? And then something happened where I'm like, oh, they're already friends? Like I missed it.
Weird in like she was manipulating her.
Yeah, it felt very fake, and I don't like that is a story you can tell, but that's not what we were told we were going to get.
So this synopsis, it mostly talks about the fact that Chula is obsessed with her, which I think she did do a good job.
You do get that, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely get that of her as a 7-year-old. I think that I liked a lot of her writing style. I do think she did go a little bit overboard in places, like you said, Kara. I can definitely there is so much value that I found in this story. There's so much that this story made me kind of sit down and think with. But I also think that following the narrative, because she was doing such a good job of writing from a child's perspective, it was hard to follow some of the things that happened because stuff would be mentioned and then I wouldn't think about it wouldn't be a thing in the story again until like the cows. I was like, wait, what about the cows? And it wasn't until she mentioned them like the third time at the end that I was like, oh, that's right. She named those cows after her dad and someone else. Yes.
I also I don't know. I felt a little weird about the choice that the only character we're told is black is like the abusive boyfriend, and they made a point of reminding us how dark his skin is every time.
The fucking time.
It was very weird because some of it felt like commentary, like when Petrona's family, like her mom is like, and we're descended from the Spanish and we have lighter skin, and how come they get to be like living so nice? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I get that. This is talking about colorism. That makes sense. But like it felt like a weird detail.
Like it felt like the author was also in on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then for the detail with Gorion, it felt like that maybe wasn't part of it. Like I don't know, I just felt weird about that choice.
Yeah, they did talk about his afroed hair multiple times.
A lot, and how big and scary he looked. Yeah. And like they really emphasized how frightening he looked as a person.
Which makes sense from like a child's point of view, but we didn't really get a lot of like we should have seen a different side from Petronas.
Yeah, and like, there are ways to like write something that the main character believes, and you make it clear that the author is not endorsing that, with some of the other colors and stuff. And then this was the only thing where I'm like, this feels weird.
It made me think of Encanto, and one of the things I loved about Encanto is that it portrayed literally like every shade of Colombian, like how that was like such a beautiful like multi-chrome experience, right? Like you had the darkest skinned member of the family delighted, and it was like, oh, this is great. And then I read this book and I was like, oh, all the black people are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Yes, Bree, you had your hand up.
So you were talking about the writing style. Okay, 2 thoughts. Firstly, it feels like a memoir to me.
Yeah, it does.
Writing style. where we're not actually reading from the 7-year-old's perspective, but the 7-year-old's perspective as she's thought about these things down the road.
As an adult.
I really wish it wasn't that way. We should have. Here's what I'm thinking. If this story, exact same story even, was told with like a 7-year-old's like kind of journalistic like entries with like little doodles and stuff like that, like very, very, very 7-year-old, but with the same content and the same information as this girl has. And then even with Petronas, you could do the same thing. You could have the same thing, but it be, you know, the 13-year-old girl's drawings. And then, of course, the drawings and the writing and the penmanship could, like, improve as you went. But, like, as that kind of story, like, with the, you know, the illustrations and the very stripped down, simple, not telling us what we think about these things, but just telling us these things, it would have been so much more impactful, I feel like, because we would have been seeing this 7-year-old, you know, seeing these things and experiencing these traumas, but it's like normalized in her life. And it's like, yeah, she has feelings and emotions that she sometimes shares about certain things, but other things she didn't have like necessarily any reaction or response to. And that's kind of part of what, you know, being a kid growing up in a situation you don't know any different from is, you know. And so I really think that that would have made this reading experience way better. Because again, I mean, I teach 5-year-olds for a living. I work with the 7-year-olds occasionally, but like it very much feels like somebody like reflecting back on their 7-year-old life rather than like being in it where the 7-year-old is, and like,
which is a very literary fiction style,
right?
Which is part of why that might, if you don't like, part of why it might feel that way.
Yeah, and I feel like for this particular story, it would have been so much more impactful to tell it in a way where it's like we're learning so much about like the experiences of her in that age rather than her working through those things, which I understand for the author was what she needed for herself. And like you said, it was very cathartic for her to write, I'm sure. But for the reading experience, it would have been so like,
yes, but then you would have had to make it for a children's, like a kids lit audience versus if you were going to do it that way versus an adult audience, because you can't write a book like that, at least at this point in publishing. You can't write a book like in that kind of form without it being for a kids audience. And there is a lot in here
hard to include.
Yeah, there is a lot in here that I think she wanted people to know about the reality of her childhood and people's lives that she wouldn't have been able to put in. So I think like you definitely need these books for kids that age that are appropriate. I do agree with what you're saying about like it feels like I wish we had leaned more into the idea of this is me looking back at a 7-year-old self and kind of going through what instead of trying to, like, I think she did a good job of embodying the 7-year-old, but there were places where it was very obvious a 7-year-old did not write.
It was like we were jumping back and forth between the two.
And I think that if we had stuck with one or the other, it probably would have been a better experience. Because I did feel like it was hard to track certain things because as a 7-year-old, she's not keeping track of everything. And so there were definitely
no idea how time was passing until I looked up the events on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either until we got to the part where she was saying like so many years, and I was like, wait.
It did not feel like years had gone by, but at least 4 had passed because
I thought this was like.
So Pablo Escobar was killed in 93. Galan, the politician, was killed in 89. So
94, I think she said.
I literally was on Wikipedia. It's 93. 4 years passed between the politician getting murdered and.
Oh, okay. So it's just a timeline between 89 and 94.
Yeah. So like.
Which it really does kind of give you a day-to-day feeling of how like a kid would experience time. I did like I think she did a lot of things really well. when it came to trying to capture certain aspects of being 7, 8, or 9.
Yeah, I do like the fact that it gave like snippets of things, because that's very childlike, that certain things stick and certain things are like a priority, and then you forget about that priority for a second, and then you go back to that priority, and then you go over to this other priority, and like that is very much something I see literally all day, every day.
I think
it's very much a thing.
Yeah, I think it's hard though to tell a story with that format, because it felt super meandering. And I know that there is like we've been calling it slice of life, and that is like a real thing, and I don't dislike stories like that, but it just I don't know, it felt like we were kind of killing time until the author figured out what we were going to do.
It was a much more like emotional plot. Like it's about the emotional arc than it is about the sequential event plot. But I think that she kind of mixed the two at times. Like it's very unclear.
Which, as a character-focused reader, I can totally love, but I don't think she did enough characterization for the main character to make that work. Like, of course, it's one of those situations where it's like I felt sympathy for her because nobody should have to go through the things that like Patrona did, or like Chula or anybody, but it wasn't like you feel for this. Yeah, it wasn't like you feel for this specific character. It was like, in general, these are horrible things and I am affected by them, but like it felt like
it took too long for us to see like
Chula felt like a very blank slate. And that might have been intentional because, and again, she is young, so she is still kind of figuring out like who she is as a person and all of that. But it just was very hard to like, I don't know. This was like a vibes and content book, which is fine.
Yeah,
but
which is a lot of literary fiction.
Well, okay, so I don't even like using that because this is historical fiction. It's just historical fiction that's gonna get awards.
It's that too, but it's like, so this reminded me very much of, oh my god, what is it? It's a Kazuo Ishiguro book. He's a butler.
Oh yeah, is it Remains of the Day?
Remains of the Day. This reminded me very much of kind of that style where it's someone kind of reflecting on their life. Now, this was very much like this is a specific time period in her life versus him going back and forth. That could also be considered historical fiction.
Yeah.
But it's the writing style and the way that the plot is structured that makes me feel this is more like literary fiction.
No, I'm sure that is how it's like qualified. I just don't use the phrase because it's a value judgment when I usually hear it rather than an actual description of what the book is like. So I just don't use it. But
see, it's a description of like the writing style, I feel.
I've read like how critics are going to interact with it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It determines how much you value it if you're like somebody reviewing for the New York Times or whatever.
For example, like I read another historical fiction this week, like last night at the Telegraph Club, which I think was probably a better overall book than this. But this would be literary fiction, and that's not, because that's about a teenager.
Yeah,
and it's written for a teenage audience, and this is going to be literary fiction because
this is higher quality because it's for adults.
It's like a bit higher concept. It's more stylistic, but I think that the actual quality of the storycraft is better in Last Night at the Telegraph Club.
And that, for me, that's so for me, when we're talking about literary fiction versus genre fiction, literary fiction, the plot is going to be much less apparent to me, and it's much more about how you are delivering the story and how you are delivering the character versus like actually, this is going to sound like it is, but like actually delivering an effective story and character. Like it's not like when you're talking about genre fiction, the point is you're telling a story. Like you are taking your reader through an experience. When you are doing literary fiction, the focus is on the words and how you tell the story.
So like I agree, but I think what Kara and I are getting at is that literary fiction is flimsy in the sense that it has more to do with what the critics are saying than what the actual, like something can become literary fiction because of the way the critics respond to it.
And it doesn't even have to be a consistent kind of writing style, because I have read things that are not considered literary fiction that have this style, but because of other like arbitrary reasons, like the intended audience or the fact that it's like marketed as historical fiction rather than literary, even though literary, like literary fiction does still fit into genres. You're reading a contemporary,
Yeah.
you're reading a historical fiction. You just
Yep.
want to feel better about it. So you call it literary fiction.
Is it on Reese Witherspoon or Oprah's book club?
Yeah.
It's literary fiction.
Well, it's marketed as historical fiction.
Yeah.
So that was how it was brought up. But like there's something in the author's intent, I feel, that is different between the two.
It is
That's
highly
what they tell us.
It is highly stylized. I mean, the choice to write from the perspective of a child that's scattered the entire time is a stylistic one, right? Like that is, it's not a clear like third person narrative voice.
Yeah. And I've read literary books that I have really enjoyed and that are really good. In general, I feel like something being called literary means you can get away with not doing as much writing.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to characterize very well. You don't have to have a plot. You can just be like, this is an important story and I'm going to win the Booker. Thank you. Like, that's what it feels like.
And see, I do see literary fiction as something that like character and story are taking a back seat to the
Which
writing.
like that's what a book is.
That's fine. If that's what you want to do. And I think that's why when you have something that's literary fiction, it's so much harder to find because you really have to vibe with the style versus with like normal genre fiction. You can vibe with the character.
Like Anna Marie McLemore though has a very flowery style and they do like very concept heavy books that I think are 1,000 times better written.
Yeah.
And yet because they're about teens, it's not literary. Like I just feel like it's one of those things where
there's lots of authors that deliver high concept, historical, post-colonial themes that are very stylized writing that don't suffer from lack of character or plot.
Yeah.
I know that she's obviously problematic in her own way, but Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie would be my like first thought there.
Yeah. Did you have a second thought before we went on our tangent?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, you guys. I have a lot of feelings about
We're in an English seminar now, so
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like with the writing, again, working with 5-year-olds, and so working with kids, like because she went back and forth between the actually being in the 7-year-old head and being herself reflecting back on the 7-year-old brain, like it didn't translate, I feel like, as accurately because of the fact that she was adding in all these like wordings and the way that she said things sometimes were like
there were definitely ways that she like stuff would be worded. I'm like,
there were words that 7-year-olds don't use.
A 7-year-old would not use this word.
Like, 7-year-olds don't translation. And like there are some things.
I don't think this was a translated word.
Is it not originally published in Spanish?
I don't think so.
I believe she lives in the US now. She just grew up.
No, I know that, but when I originally looked it up, I got the Spanish version. So I was thinking that this was translated, but maybe it's not.
I didn't.
Let me look at the hold on, because this will tell you.
I didn't thing about translated, but I also didn't.
But I don't.
I mean, she might have written it in both languages. Like she's obviously fluent in both languages.
I want to say that it was probably translated into Spanish, actually, would be my guess. I could be wrong about that, though. Let's see. Fruit of the Loom. That's something I haven't heard in a while.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Let me see.
But yeah, that was a challenge for me as a person who spends all of my time talking to a bunch of 5-year-olds. Like literally
it's published as genres are coming of age story, Bildungsroman, and domestic fiction.
Oh yeah, it's definitely Bildungsroman.
Yeah. What does that word mean, Cal? You're smarter than I am.
It's like
isn't it a story that's like told through time?
Through time, and it's like following a character's life through like it's like a it's like Bildung is like a photo, like it's like a picture of somebody's life through.
Yeah, it was a
prompt. Another word for memoir.
I know this
Which
because
this
I did
is
a German
heavily-
lit class in German, and it was fucking hard.
But that was one thing for me. And another thing was the fact that the way that it was told, we didn't really have any intention or purpose or plot going for it, or like that we were going for. Like, we didn't know what we were doing here. We were just there.
There was no clear act structure.
Yes.
Also, I know
that
that
was the thing that made it hard for me because I didn't know how like time was passing and all.
Right.
Of
We
that.
didn't know what the purpose of it was or anything like that for a long time. And you're back. Maybe not. Maybe.
Kira's back. I still have your old one. There we go. I'm trying to see if I can find where this was when it was published.
Which, like, slice of life to me is like, it's different than this kind of thing. Like, because I feel like slice of life is a bit more
the
like
Spanish one was published several months after after this came out.
That's just why I Googled it and it was like Spanish, and I was like, when have I ever read a book in Spanish? But thank you.
But like, I feel like slice of life is a little bit more where it's just showing you a thing and then you're not expected to like experience any things after it, like, or like have any, like, it's not like trying to, you know, show you like or tell you a certain, you know, thing or have a specific theme to it. It's just showing you this is life here, you know. Where I don't feel like this was that, but I also don't feel like it was, you know.
I think we needed a few more like placeholders in time, so the passage because it feels like one long day in several places, but time is passing. I think if we had a little bit more of that, that would have helped. She does have a memoir that she wrote, so I'm wondering if how heavily she drew from that for this.
Well, it almost feels like this wanted to be a memoir, but she wanted to include the maid's perspective.
She wanted to include the maid's perspective, and I think there is quite a bit that she did make up, like because for herself. Like I do think there are a few things. Like it doesn't. I don't know that she was at that rally where the Galan was.
Yeah. That I mean that would make
probably
sense
wasn't
to like
something that she experienced.
Bring the political landscape into. But what I do have to say that I love that I think this book executed really, really well is how she interacted with the mythos of Pablo Escobar. I remember being a kid, like when I was around that age, the war in Iraq was. I mean, obviously I'm Canadian, so I was like, all right, whatever you guys are doing. But I like it was on the news all the time, and I remember like being genuinely afraid of Saddam Hussein, even though there was no reason for a little Canadian white kid to ever be afraid of Saddam Hussein. But like because he was in the news all the time, it was like that name was scary to me. And I think
like you think Osama bin Laden was the same thing with the US was like they were talking about him like he was a very real threat to us.
Yeah.
And I think for her, you get the even heightened fact of like, okay, yeah, obviously Pablo Escobar doesn't care about her, Chula specifically, but like that personality, that mythos was like a huge anxiety of hers.
The one thing that she does say did really happen to her was the girl with the car bomb. So she says, she says a girl was tragically killed by a car bomb near my neighborhood in Bogota when her father went inside a building to buy tickets to the circus. I didn't know for sure if the television showed the girl's legs still wearing her shoe, but that's what I remember. That year I would go to the circus. My sister and I were picked up from among the kids in the crowd to ride atop the elephant. My sister held onto me and I gazed down at the great wrinkles of the elephant's head, people cheering in the pews. But all I could think was that the girl was gone, no longer with us. Yeah.
One thing I did really like in the book, and I agree, I think that the overall feeling, like that oppressive, like fear that everybody experienced, even though Chula in a lot of ways is much better off than Petrona, it's like they still have that danger that they're in constantly. And yet people still like get by the best they can. I think that was like shown really well. But one thing I also really liked was the girl's mom. I think she was like one of my favorite characters. She was just so interesting to me. And
really
like
well realized.
Yes. And like kind of, I mean, not funny exactly, but like
she was funny.
just sometimes she was, and there were those moments where like she would just like stomp in and like take charge, and there would kind of be that feeling of like, all right, maybe like one thing is gonna be okay, you know.
I actually laughed, like cackled out loud when she got her kids back from being kidnapped and she yelled at them. She's like, "You little fool!"
I know.
Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
my mom would have
Literally would be
been
my mother, though.
like crying, and she's like, "You little idiots! Like, get back in the house."
I really liked her.
I swear, I bet that's what my mom would have done if that ever.
Yeah, I really liked her, but also like the fact that she let Petrona go back, I was just like,
Well, I thought it was really interesting that right from the beginning she had this savior complex with Petrona.
yeah.
And
And then when she really needed her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. But also the same thing with the dad, right? Like she's a very flimsy character. Like she's cheating on the dad. She hates the dad. She tells the girls not to trust the dad or listen to the dad.
Yeah.
And the minute the dad is missing, she is losing her shit. Like,
that was part of the challenge for me as well. From personal experience, that was a little bit difficult for me to read. Like I feel like because of the fact that like nothing was done or said about it, nothing came of it, like there was no resolution to a lot of the little things like that were like thrown in, which they aren't little things, but they were just thrown in so minutely because there were 75 other, huge things going on too. I feel like, she tackled a little bit too much in some areas where we couldn't experience, the emotions that went with any one thing because it was like almost like a shock value. It was like, oh, and on top of that, she's also cheating, but don't worry about it. It'll be fine in the end, and everyone will pretend like it didn't happen.
To me, that was part of her being a fully realized character because you have this woman who is home alone a lot of the time. Her husband is gone off on these job sites, and it's implied also that he's cheating on her possibly. And it's just one of those things that like I don't think that was an age where people would have thought that, hey, there's a healthy way we can deal with these things and like be open about this and know,
Well, I thought both the characters were like they sucked, but they were really well written.
Yeah.
Both the parents were like the dad trying to bribe them with money, being like, "Oh, if you take the money."
Yeah.
Oh, that pissed me. That's part of the thing is like they just like so many things happened that I don't even remember like so many little things like that. It was just like so much.
I think that the specificity of the detail is there to make it feel real, but not necessarily be something that lives on in your kind of head because like there's like stuff that she actually wants you to have the takeaway, and then there's other stuff that she wants you to have because that is the emotion she was feeling at the time.
Oh, can I ask you guys a really big question I had about this book that I kept trying to figure out the entire fucking book?
What the fuck happened with the chickens?
Oh, see, I knew what that was. As soon as she like mixed soap with their feet,
know.
I'm like, they're gonna kill these freaking chickens.
Wait, she did that? I didn't realize that.
Yes, yeah. What was your question though, Cal?
Why the fuck was it the book named after the tree? Because like
that's a valid question.
I think because it was like an interesting title, like
because I kept waiting for
Petrona's
rape to be connected to the tree. Because at the beginning of the book that she's been raped. You know that the tree is commonly used as like the date rape drug. So I just kept waiting.
Yeah.
I think that's what they used.
But there's never any like
confirmation.
She says
conversation about it.
Yeah, it's never confirmed.
The only thing that I could think of is that there was supposed to be some kind of like thematic connection because like
and I did feel like it was kind of there in places.
Like people interact with the tree and it's a very like powerful image and it does make a good title. So I kind of just assumed it was supposed to be this vague theme connection between like, I don't know, this idea of like uncertainty and like when people like Petrona tried to, kill herself with it and like this idea of being powerless, like that was kind of what I wondered. But like,
I saw it more as like you have this very gorgeous tree that looks good.
Yeah.
You want to it's enticing, it draws you in, but then it is also something that will poison you. Like you cannot be near it for too long without it affecting you, and you cannot eat its fruit. Like every part of it is poisonous. I kind of saw that more as a metaphor for Escobar and like his effect on Colombia. if that makes sense.
But then that's not clear. Like I can see the connection you're making, but I almost feel like the tree symbolism was an afterthought.
I feel like it's something that almost makes sense.
like we're skimming on the edge of it, making
I think like, it might be something that like
get it,
got
but I
edited out.
mostly I like almost get it, but I mostly think it sounds really good as a title. Like I think that's why it's the title.
It does say
I was expecting them to be connected to the tree in some way, like they were the fruit of the drunken tree.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
So maybe it's supposed to be like their life that they had looks good and everything.
I kept waiting for the mother to be like the big issue. And like I'm not saying the mother was perfect or anything, but like overall she's not really the problem.
Yeah.
She's just like also definitely not the solution. But like because she planted the tree, she was so staunch about keeping it. She's like, this is a powerful. I kept waiting for her to be like the reason Petrona got really fucked up. But like circumstance was mainly the reason Petrona got really fucked up, right? Like the mom did not help, but I would say it's not fair to categorize the mom as like
she was just doing the best that she could, and she had to think about her daughters.
And she was a bit of like she liked showing off her wealth. She liked having servants. Blah, blah, blah. Did she need servants? No. But
I think there are several places where you could apply the fruit of the drunken tree as a metaphor in the story, but I do feel like there has to have been some other connection that possibly got edited out and wasn't like they didn't think about like
interesting
or a connection that was like it's one of those things where it's like it's obvious to the author what the connection is.
But I also like as far as the mom character, like she definitely isn't perfect, and she is involved in some of the obstacles in the book, but I also like kept waiting for there to be more reason to blame her for things because it felt like that's what we were setting up, and like she should have helped Petrona. Like the fact that like Petrona's mother was just asking her like, just tell the police you're looking for her, they'll care if you ask, and she wouldn't even do that. Like that made me really upset. But also I understand why she would be upset if it's like, hey, my daughter tried to like kidnap your daughters, kind of changed her mind at the last possible second,
right?
And it's like,
well,
I don't know.
Like,
I get why she did that.
Mom doesn't know that. Like, I mean, a lot of it I feel was Petrona being intimidated and threatened.
Yeah.
And so,
this is and also like even Chula at the end being like, well, if mom had just fired her, then this wouldn't have happened. I'm like maybe not. Are you? But like,
or maybe it still would have,
or maybe it would have happened to somebody else. Like it's not.
Yeah,
it's really not. Their fault that she was put in this terrible position.
And the way that Petrona said to Chula, she's like, I tried to tell you guys to leave the ice cream place. And it's like, there's a difference between like warning somebody and like vaguely saying, you shouldn't have come here today. Like,
okay, also, do you guys feel like if it had just been Cassandra, she completely would have let them kidnap Cassandra? Because she just like Chula, because Chula reminded her of Aurora.
Well, that and Chula was also like nice to her. If you remember, Cassandra basically ignored Petrona, so there was no real relationship between the two of them. But like,
did not deserve to get kidnapped.
I mean, truly. But I understand why it would be Chula that was the one that kind of she was like, I can't do this anymore.
That was like another thing though, that like to hang so much of the book on this like cross-class friendship and then to not develop the friendship very well, it was like really weird.
Well,
like I don't feel like we saw enough of the friendship to like understand exactly like why Petrona would have this change of heart at the moment. But I also don't feel like we did a good enough job showing why she would go along with the kidnapping as long as she did. And I understand she was really afraid for herself and for her younger sister.
That's partly because Petrona's things were so short.
Yeah, which was fine because I needed to read this book faster.
They pretty much implicitly said that they would rape her little sister if they
and I get that. I guess it just like the friendship was a nice idea that I never saw actually happen.
Well,
like,
I mean, I don't know what synopsis you're looking at, but the synopsis on the back of the book is just about the fact that Chula is obsessed, and then it's talking about how like they're dealing with these things as Petrona gets, because the back of the book here says Chula makes it her mission to understand Petrona's mysterious ways. Petrona is a young woman crumbling under the burden of providing for her family as the riptide of first love pulls her in the opposite direction.
Margaret, I think I know what synopsis.
What? I just muted myself.
I think that's the way you marketed it.
What?
I think that's the way you described it in the Veda.
That might have been the way that I described it.
I think that's how you marketed it to us.
Possibly. So I misunderstood it. And like it makes sense having read the book. But it's primarily about like impossible choices for women. And so I think we see that through her mom and we see that through Petrona.
It might have also been partly reviews that I read while I was reading this or before, or even just like the story itself makes it feel like it's going to be about this friendship, and then it's like blink and you'll miss it, and they're already friends, but they're not really. But also, we're not talking about how they're not really friends.
I saw it more as like, okay, so as someone who's worked with kids that like they're not mine, but like I spend a lot of time with them when I was at church, I saw it more as like she kind of was being the benevolent, friendly older person who is there to do her job. I didn't think like I think Chula put more into thinking that they had a friendship than it really was. Like that was all Chula in her head, thinking that they were friends. And I'm like, that does not make you friends, child.
Right. I agree. I wish the book had like noticed that it did that. Is my point. Because I feel like the book didn't notice that it did that.
Okay. Or like in Petrona's perspective, maybe show a little bit of like her views on Chula. Like, we didn't really see a lot of
other than she reminds me of Aurora for no reason.
Because every time we were in Petrona's perspective, we were only focusing on her life outside of. It was like every time we were.
It was the stuff that you didn't like. You would get like you'd have the stuff that happened in Chula's perspective, and you'd be like, "What's going on with Petrona?" And then you would get the chapter that tells you why Petrona was the way she was.
Right, like, and only telling about the stuff outside of those four walls. Whereas, I feel like if we had maybe gotten some of Petrona's perspective while she was inside those four walls, that would have shown her, like, that would have given a better opportunity to give that older perspective on what was happening in the house.
Or even like a different motivation
in that house.
Yeah, and
somehow, without us knowing that, like, there was a lot of stuff that it felt like it was like towards the end that like the author was purposely not telling the audience stuff.
I think too there was also an opportunity to like not make it about friendship at all, like the choice that Petrona, like that she doesn't go through with the kidnapping. That also could have just been because we know that Petrona is a decent person, and it could have just been the difference. Yeah, and it could have just been the difference between, in theory, I can sacrifice a person I don't know very well for my younger sister, and then having to do that would be different.
So hard,
so different. So like that also could have worked. Instead, I feel like we were supposed to see like, oh, see, they did have some kind of bond between them, and I'm like,
it's like no, she just didn't want to be the reason two little girls
died. Because they would have ended up dead at some point. Like,
not everyone that got kidnapped ended up dead, but they would a lot of the time in the kidnappings, from what I read, you would end up like you would be there for a while.
Yeah. And I was shocked when the dad came back. I was so sure he was dead. I'm like, we can't have any happy thing happen. There's no way.
He came back, and then I felt like that part, I was like, is it the same dad? Like, am I being tricked?
I like that. We talked about that a little already, but I think that was one of the best parts of the book is when like Chula has to confront that she has PTSD, and that's why she can't believe it's really her father. And when she when she tells the therapist like he's an imposter and I need to tell you why, and the therapist is like, okay, let's talk about that. And she's like, you're gonna come see me again. And like
that's funny.
I thought the last 50 pages of the book were the best.
Yeah, like when they
were really good.
100% agree. I wish that like it focused more on what was occurring in those pages, or like what came to a head in those pages throughout the rest, rather than throwing at us all these other types of conflicts and traumatic things. Like, just focus on the actual trauma that is leading to that,
Or you. So for me,
in more of like, how do I words?
Well, because I think if she had been a little bit more direct in how she was writing it, a lot more, and a little bit more like you had a better idea of how time was passing, it wouldn't have been as bad, because I think there are specific things that she wanted you to see about her life and growing up and the experiences of her family. So, like, I understood why she included everything she did. I just think that we needed more to anchor us.
I think some of it could have been cut though. Like, I don't think we needed long scenes of her playing with the neighbor girls, or like,
no, we didn't like that. That is one I would have cut. Like, why was the oligarch in there? Why was there any like?
I don't give a fuck about these side characters.
Although it was really funny when they killed her generator.
I almost feel like this is a book that, like, even though it does cover a lot of time and it has a lot that happens in it, I almost feel like it should have been like a novella, because so much of it is about a concept and about showing like a day-to-day life kind of thing. And you could have still had, like, by making the timeline clearer, by cutting out some of the extra characters and scenes, I feel like it would have been a really streamlined version of what it was. Because so much of it,
the grandmas,
because so much of it was about just what it was like living here, and that's something that I feel like you could have like the Petrona plot line, you could have them leaving at the end of the story, and you could just kind of like focus on that more rather than kind of meandering until you end up there.
A lot of the early stuff, I think we could have like shortened the plot line with Petrona a little bit.
Yeah.
I did like the depiction of a country that is under siege, because like so one of my favorite podcasts is called It Could Happen Here, and it's about like the different ways that communities come together when stuff like this happens, and it's partly in preparation for the fact like their kind of thing is, listen guys, the way things are going in the US, this is stuff that we're going to be seeing more widespread than we already are. And like, so they touch on like stuff like guerrilla gardening and stuff like that. And then they also touch on places where it is in fact actually happening in the United States and also in the world.
Yeah, except your guerrillas are going to be like incels and alt-right dudes.
I'm not looking forward to it, but I do like some of the stuff that like they're covering. I like the fact that like they did an entire thing, like they cover a lot of stuff that's like not the typical environmental stuff. Like they had a whole 2 or 3 part thing about the water defenders, where they actually went out and they talked with people and were interviewing them and like talking about why are you doing what you're doing and kind of giving you the case for that. And then they have like, they went out, they were just out in Ukraine talking with someone. We were just in
Vladimir himself.
No, they were not talking about, but they were talking with someone who was actually in Ukraine when things fell, and he was a journalist that had to get out. They also just finished a series where they were talking about Myanmar and talking about how 3D printed weapons are affecting that. So you have that plus like stuff that needs to change in order for things to get better. And so it's an interesting, but it was interesting to see some of what you're learning in that podcast here.
Well, that's like the historian in me loved that part of it, but then the like person who really loves storytelling was like, this is not necessarily a well-told story.
Yeah. I almost wish it was like separated between the like I wish it was like the family story was a separate story from the like experience of like between Chula and Petrona. Like I feel like those were kind of 2 separate stories.
Yes. Sorry, someone just made a funny comment in the private chat. No, I think that if we had gotten like, I think if she had focused it down even more from like 8 to 9.
Yeah.
And just kind of, because I think she got tied to the timeline she actually lived through. And I think could have had the same story in a year's time.
I think we would have benefited way more from Petrona's backstory than we did from Chula's. I don't really care about Chula's backstory because the backstory that drives the plot is Petrona.
I also though, and this is partly what like I was saying about like, you know, the time I happened to read this, like the reason I powered through this so quick is because I'm like, I can't sit in this book for too long. Like I am not doing well.
Yeah.
So I think like it would have been even harder if we had spent more time on Petrona, because like even though her story is really important and like it is really like seeing what she is going through is very different from Chula's backstory. Like, I don't know that I necessarily would have wanted like more detail about how miserable Patrona and her family were, you know, like for story reasons, I think it could have made sense. But as a reader, I'd be like, oh God, I barely made it through, you know, like, which I know is like a very lucky thing to say, is like, oh, it's so hard for me to read about these things that are not happening to me. But
I think it would have been nice to see some of her impressions of like things in the actual house.
Yes. Like, why was she like, because at first she really didn't want to fuck over her employers, right? Like, what, like, maybe there was a moment with Alma that made her be like, okay.
We needed more of like her motivations like as she's changing versus just snippets. And so like the snippets worked more for Chula than they did for Patrona, because we need to know so much about Patrona's motivations and everything.
Well, Chula doesn't have that between the two of them.
And maybe that's part of it, is that she's stuck in her character as the person that lived through it. But really, the interesting character is Patrona.
Yeah.
Except she doesn't actually make any choices. Like, she has such limited options. It's like, I think that's one of the things that maybe made it hard that made it feel like we weren't getting a
big choice.
Yes. And I know that's partly the point, is that Patrona is in a situation where she has so few options, but I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I wasn't as sold on her as a character or on the friendship, is because she didn't have a lot of agency. And that is an important thing to know about her circumstances. But like, kind of like you were saying, Cal, like historically, I appreciate that. From the perspective of a reader, I'm like, this is not very interesting.
Yeah.
I do feel like one other thing with the writing was that there was no clear difference in the writing style from the perspective shift. It felt the exact same between the two of them as far as age of the narrative and all of that. Like,
and again, I think if we had pulled back and been like coming in from as an older person talking about how it was at 7, and then we had Patrona more in the moment, would have improved things.
Or even think of like the things she's seen, like the Avengers book we read.
Yeah.
And how the two girls, like one was verse, one was
completely
prose.
Different styles.
This could have been like if they had if she had really changed styles, because she obviously can write stylistically. So if she had changed,
well, she's also a songwriter, so writing in verse wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I think that would have worked actually, and especially since so much of it is about imagery and feeling. I think that would have made it a lot stronger.
For Patrona, who's going through things like blackouts and memory loss and drugs and stuff, and like really intense grief, I think verse would have been very effective.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Any final thoughts about the book?
We really have to pee.
Okay.
Let's wrap up.
So the next round of Vaultathon is going to be the 19th through the 25th, and the movie is going to be Hercules, primarily because there is a live action that has been in the works, and I want to get to Hercules before it is no longer a movie that can be used for Vaultathon.
Do you think that once they do the live action movie, they'll actually show the time that Hercules murdered his wife and 3 children?
I don't think we're going to go for that version.
I have
a feeling we're going for that version of Hercules. So
I'm just going on a limb here. I'm guessing maybe not.
I'm so excited anyways. Because
what month is this?
What month?
What month is this?
It is September 19th through the 25th.
Okay.
So we're only doing 2 rounds of Vaultathon this year, just because I am going to be doing other things as well. So pulled back.
Okay.
What about, guys, we're gonna get to talk about Pain and Panic.
Yes!
So good.
So
early influences on my personality, Pain and Panic.
Yes. So does anyone have anything to plug real quick before we go? I have a video coming out recommending mystery thriller books for Fablin, if anyone's interested in that. Wednesday.
I would like to plug that I was born the year that Hercules came out.
Good job.
Thank you.
Nice.
Have you come up with a group book yet?
I have not. I have to watch the movie before I do that. And it's been a very long time.
We all know it's going to be Percy Jackson.
It's not going to be Percy Jackson. I'm not that. It probably is not going to be anything group related. at all. I don't know. We'll see.
I recommend you a Greek-related book that might be good though.
If it's Song of Achilles,
It's
I
not.
am never okay.
It's not.
Okay.
Oh,
recommend it after we have left.
okay.
Okay. Anyways, anyone else have anything you want to plug before we go?
Next weekend, you can hear me talk about Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, the best Bronte, the most underappreciated Bronte. So
No.
I like, you cannot change my mind, but that's okay. Like,
No, Kara, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to Brianna.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love that you guys get to read Neon Gods and read Katie Roberts. Everything I've heard about everything she has ever written just tells me I am too ace for that.
I'm terrified.
So, anyways, continue. So, Agnes Grey, you're going to be talking about. I will have to read this Agnes Grey then if you like it so much.
It's only 200 pages. Like, it's one of the shortest classics I've read, and I really liked it. So
maybe I should read it before then because I have it on my shelf over there.
It's going to be April 2nd, and I forget what. Let me pull it up on my calendar.
So next Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is 10 a.m. my time. So for you guys, it'd be 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Yeah. So it's like, actually, it's another semi-autobiographical book, and it's about Agnes Grey is the main character, and she's a governess, and there's a lot of commentary on how much it sucked to be a governess back then.
I read this.
It's like, I think it's not as popular with modern readers as Tenant of Wildfell Hall because it's less obviously subversive.
Yeah, I've read this. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I really liked it. I think she's a really good writer, and she was very ahead of her time in some ways. So.
I thought it was very interesting. I don't think it's my favorite, but I did think it was really interesting.
Yeah, like I agree. It's like I liked Tenant better, and I see why Tenant lands better for modern readers, but I wish she wrote a lot more novels because I really enjoyed this one too.
Yeah, I've never read Anne, but I love Jane Eyre. So I'm willing to read another Bronte book about a governess.
Cool.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other pluggers?
I just put up an unhaul, and I have a video going up tomorrow.
Yay!
It's a very short video, so you can fit it in into your schedule. It's only like 5 minutes.
Is it your beta announcement?
Yeah. you can manage watching 5-minute video, right?
Yeah. Yeah, three of the 5 of us are doing BookTube Beta next month. So you'll be seeing a lot from us. Anyways, and Thor, do you have anything you want to plug or no?
Well, look out for my friend's favorites video. I'm not sure when it's coming out, probably in the next couple of weeks, because I found out the funeral's on Tuesday, and I'm just not in the mood to read or like do that kind of thing.
100%.
You got more important things than BookTube right now.
Yeah. Family's priority for sure.
But yeah, that and probably like a stationery collection is coming out at some point too.
Yay. Fun stuff. Okay, well, in that case, that's all she wrote. That's all we got. Thank you so much for joining us for Vault. I'm not doing it, Cal, because that means I'm predictable. What are your things? Bye.